This weekend, Andy's questing, Ryan is sanding his deck, and we grab our handhelds to race in the clouds. I'm Ryan.
I'm Andy.
And this is Weekend Rental, episode 186. Welcome back, everybody. It's been an interesting day so far. There's been some news. There's a strange debate going on television that is interesting. But let's get into the biggest topic, because who cares about that nonsense? The nonsense we want to talk about is Sony today.
There's no debate about this.
There is zero debate. Gamers across the internet have universally come together to decide that they don't want a PlayStation 5 Pro, at least in the way that Sony has pitched this thing. So for some reason, Sony felt the need to do a mid-cycle or mid-generation upgrade yet again for a console that you could argue has virtually zero games that are solely on that. There's basically we've been in a first party killer app drought with this thing, but they're like, you know what would make it better? 8K versions and increased GPU performance of those games for the low price of $700. And then if you want a disk drive, how about another $80? And then, hey, if you want to stand that vertically, how about another $40? Or how about we just bend you over and shove it right up your ass? Is pretty much the sales pitch.
Yeah, pretty much. And they have a rich history of this. I mean, the $600 PS3, which I guess probably inflation wise, that's probly more expensive.
Yeah, that's still their high watermark, I think.
Probably. But yeah, this one's really hard to swallow, because the last time they did the PlayStation 4 Pro, that seemed more like a replacement. Like they lowered the price on the base model. I think the Pro was still maybe a little bit more than what the base model originally was, but at least it was like in the realm, right?
Yeah, and I feel like at the point that they had put that out, developers had unleashed enough of like the potential under the hood with that console that they were reaching real limitations, and there were games coming out, like Horizon that like greatly benefited. But I don't know if there's a real reason for these to have to look better. Like, no, I don't feel like anyone's pushed the hardware truly yet.
Yeah. I mean, if you see the technical demonstration, like the video was, if you put them side by side, I mean, you can tell it's not, but it's, if you were going to play them one after the other, I don't know if you would.
Right. And here's my thing with that is like, they are doing that in an optimum environment with optimum connections and optimum television sets. Like they're probably using the best HDMI connections they can get. They're running on like 8K TVs. Like those aren't in most people's homes. Like I feel like we're just now where like maybe the majority of people have 4K HDR compatibility.
Yeah.
And even then they're probably doing it through like, well, myself included, like a TCL from Walmart. You know what I mean? Like we're not running TVs that are going to like capitalize on this in any like meaningful way.
Right. I think 8K is just not I don't know if that's really going to be a sales pitch, to the majority of people, unless it just replaces 4K at some point. But yeah, it's, and the fact that the PlayStation 4 Pro, I feel like their pitch was we're really turning up what this console can do. But to do that, we had to do, you had to put performance or quality.
Right.
Like you could pick which one. That was like the pitch with the PS4 Pro.
Right.
And now they're kind of going back on this and saying, oh, now it can do both of them.
Right. Which I think is a better sales pitch, because I never liked the having to do either or, but like I don't think anyone was mad about the performance or the way things looked, or you know what I mean? Or I don't know.
No.
And I think like the troubling thing, and I think the thing they've missed the mark on here is that we've been in a position this generation where it's pretty obvious to most people that the right answer to what is the best bang for your buck is a solid gaming PC. And that's been the case for a while. And the PS5 Pro is probably going to outpace or meet what the best gaming rigs can do in ideal situations on certain games. But when that price point of the base console plus the disk drive is getting within that $100 range, especially if you're going to build it yourself, of a very adequate, 16 gigs of RAM, you're maybe not getting to ray tracing, but good gaming rig where you're also going to get to play the games that Sony has put on their PlayStation 5 and run them just fine. You'll have access to the Steam library and you'll have access to Xbox Game Pass PC if you want. Why the fuck would you spend the money on a PlayStation 5 Pro when you could just do the PC alternative and have it do all the things, even do your goddamn Excel spreadsheet if you wanted to? You know what I mean?
Especially if you're trying to pigeonhole them into joining your digital storefront or your ecosystem, where it's like, well, you can't compete with Steam on that point.
No. So, yeah, it is mind boggling that how much of a swing and a miss this really is.
I mean, I'm sure there's analysts inside Sony that know what percentage of, current owners are going to be diehards and upgrade it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And you'll probably get some people for Christmas, like, oh, just get the good one. Just get the good one. Whatever. Money's no object. But it's tough to swallow. That's for sure.
My boss was mentioning this price to me. He's like, well, maybe like they're also banking on the fact that like you said, the Christmas rush SKU, like the new hotness is the $700 thing, right? Every kid's gonna be asking for it. Nobody's gonna be able to find it. But you know what's pretty good to mom and dad who don't know any better is a $500 or less PlayStation 5 Slim that's going to be on sale and bundled with everything, right?
Yeah.
And then it kind of does. I think it does another thing too in the marketplace is that like when compared to its direct competition, right? Like the best PlayStation outclasses the best Xbox, right? Like it's way better than the Xbox Series X, so it's like, well, now they're like touting this thing. It's like, well, regardless, like we have the thing that just destroys the competition on hardware specs alone. So I think there's something to be said with like a little bit of that mentality too. Although I don't know how many people are really clamoring for Xboxes at this point. So maybe that doesn't sway too many people, but
I just don't see anybody even worried about that type of performance. I mean, the Series X was a beefier system than any of the PlayStation 5s at this point.
Yes, but neutered because of the requirement for S, so they've killed themselves.
Yeah, so it's all in parity anyway for the most part.
Yeah.
And it's always the lowest common denominator that games come out on for the most part. Unless you're doing first party, which Sony apparently still does, but they're releasing a console without, I don't think they have a big first party game this year, do they?
Well, we'll talk about that. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. It's wild. And I guess like maybe the selling point is that like gaming on a PC is still more work. It's still multiple ecosystems. It's still multiple variables. So I guess if you look at it from the standpoint of like, this is still a dedicated box that is supposed to do one thing very, very well. And it's pretty much idiot proof. Like there's something to be said for that, but I don't know. Like it's so not hard to get into PC gaming anymore that's much of a selling point to this.
Yeah, I think the person that's going to spend that wants fidelity like that is already in the PC area anyway. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I don't get it. I'm glad to see that everybody else, because it's not a hate thing. Like nobody dislikes Sony, but I think everyone realizes that they don't need this when they're already sitting on a console that they probably have less than 20 games for, right? Because this is one of the best parts of a PlayStation 5 is getting the best experience out of your PlayStation 4 library. And that's still the case all these years later.
Yeah. This is just Sony asking for money. I mean, squeezing money out of some people. They're just really not delivering.
Yeah.
That much, I would say.
I would agree. Well, it's funny. I was chatting with a buddy. We were texting back and forth today. We were talking about like this generation a little bit too. I was saying how like it's, he was saying he hasn't used his Xbox at all. He's just kind of went PlayStation 5. And I was like, I'll be honest, like my Xbox is just my Game Pass machine for when I want to play on the couch. Like I own one physical game for it, and that was given to me by a friend of the show, Brandon. I haven't bought a physical game for it. And then I was thinking about the PlayStation 5, and it's the same thing, minus like some $5 clearance grabs. We've bought, and it's my son's, it's not my console. So he's not buying a lot of games because he's content with Roblox and Fortnite. But we've bought one game for it. Like that's insane to me that I have two consoles, and between them, I would say I've legit purchased one real game for it, But let's talk about that game because Astrobot came out. I knew it was coming out, I guess. I had heard about it. I didn't know when. It wasn't really on my radar. I just happened to see like a flash sale because I'm like a psychopath and I check. I don't know why, because they're always terrible. Those deal of the day things at Best Buy every day. Like once in a blue moon, you find something that's worth a damn. But then I found some clearance games and I was like, oh, I'm going to buy a couple of these for myself because there were some good deals on the Switch. I think I got like Brawl Force for like $15. And then I got a little discount on the physical version of Gimmick, which is, Best Buy uses my loophole to like get stuff from Limited Run without having to deal with Limited Run. I still don't like it, but I'm like, whatever. But in doing that was when I saw, hey, Astrobot was out that day. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I know he liked, the Astros Playroom and stuff that was on there. I own the VR game, never played it yet. Read a couple reviews and I was like, okay, I'm going to go grab this. He'll see if I can shake him out of Fortnite a little bit, give him an excuse to do something else with this PlayStation 5. And I'm ultimately curious. So I went and bought it day one. Did you buy it?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't have a PS5, so.
Oh, why did I think you had one?
No.
I thought you had bought one.
I've been waiting for a Pro.
Well, you're in luck. Astrobot is fucking fantastic. I shit you not. It is impossible not to smile playing this game. For anyone who's listened to this podcast knows that I'm not a big fan of 3D Mario. With the exception of I really like Mario 3D World. I think that's really fun when you take the traditional gameplay and chunk it out like that. Astrobot takes everything that is excellent about Mario 3D World and perfects it. It's infinitely better. And I think the reason for that is like they didn't have to focus on the multiplayer aspect or anything. Where you could look at like Bowser's Fury, that edition, like when they focused on just the one thing, it is. I think it's a better 3D platforming game than any Mario game that Nintendo's put out. I honestly, truly believe that the visuals are fucking fantastic. It doesn't have power-ups like Mario does, but it has different play mechanics and things that come in through different robots you pick up along the way that act in the way Mario power-ups do. They're always evolving. You're always running into something new. The visuals are impressive. It's got collectibles. It's got, you don't have hearts or anything like, or power-up to protect you from taking damage. Just like one hit, but then you'll respawn. There's like really good checkpoints. And it uses the haptic feedback from what I've seen, at least, very well. And I can't say that I can confirm that because I've only just watched my son play and we're maybe like 4 hours in. Well, maybe not even three, maybe 4. Kind of just scratching the surface. If we're a third of the way through the game, I'd say about a third of the ways through, but it is so good. The music is good. It controls tight. The secrets, the whole objective of like picking up your robot buddies in every level to have like that collectible element. And then just that if you've been there since day one for Sony, just like the going into a new level, and my son will be like, "What's this about?" And I'm like, "Oh, I recognize that. I recognize that melody. Like, I kind of know what the stage is going to be." And then I'll watch him like go up and like find one of the bots, and I was like, "Yep, it's fucking Ape Escape." And it's like a whole Ape Escape theme level. And then the next thing you know, you're picking up like Metal Gear, and then there's Jack and Daxter, and like, so all that adds like an extra layer of like, oh, this is great, like all these references. But like the game is so perfect even without that's just like the icing on top of this amazing cake. I would not say you should buy a PlayStation 5 for Astrobot, but if you own a PlayStation 5, there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't have this game. And I'll be shocked if this isn't game of the year. It should be up there. This is in I'll die on this hill in the way that I think Rayman Legends out Mario's Mario in the 2D element. This out Mario's Mario in the 3D element. It is, and I think the thing that makes me so sad is I know that this is Sony, and that this thing will probably just go into an abysmal dead end and never like get an ongoing legacy like it deserves, right?
Right. Yeah, you're probably exactly true. I am just happy that they made a few more games after that, because I mean, the first one was obviously a VR game.
Yep.
And it's probably the best VR game.
Platformer, yeah.
Yeah, definitely platformer, but even the other stuff that they have in it just for innovation was already incredible. So the fact that they stuck to that team and said, yeah, this is a franchise going forward was a good thing. And then, like you said, then they started putting all the PlayStation history stuff in there.
Yeah.
Which just made it that much better.
Yeah. It's fantastic. It has you, even as a spectator, smiling the whole time you're watching it, which is something you just don't see outside of Nintendo very often. It's so good. Just find a way to play it if you got a PlayStation 5. I'm telling you, just go buy it now.
And this might be one of the few that maybe they don't bring to the PC.
Yeah, I think they'd be stupid to be honest. And it has a ton of, you'd need a pretty good PC to like run this at optimum, because the visuals they don't pull any punches. Like they really did a lot of lighting and dynamic effects, and it's obviously not like super like true to life detailed visuals. So I guess maybe it wouldn't be such a big deal, but it's a gorgeous game. Just gorgeous.
And you probably need that controller, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. They really did build heavily into that. I can't wait to sit down through the rest of it. And luckily he doesn't want to play it without me, which is great because I just want to keep watching him play it. So it's awesome. And I was happy that he got hooked on it, because convincing him to do anything with his PlayStation 5 other than Fortnite is a struggle. So once he got into it and started playing it and realized like, okay, there's something here. That was pretty cool.
Well, and like the fact that you said that, like Ape Escape shows up. I understand why Sony doesn't make a new Ape Escape. It wouldn't probably sell, but at least there's an outlet to have something, for that.
Yeah. And the Ape Escape one was really fun because they actually kind of like, more so than other franchises that we've run into so far, they like fully flipped the game into like, you're now running around with a net scooping up monkeys, which I think is cool. But the robots are the monkeys essentially. So that was kind of cool to see them go to that level. Like I'm super curious to see what else they pull out. And I know they said there's gonna be some free DLC to like sprinkle in some more nostalgia. They said it wasn't gonna be like a big, expansion, but there will be more franchises and history working their way in. So very cool. I'm very curious to see where this lands on Game of the Year list. I think I've seen multiple 10 out of 10 review scores on this from outlets.
So, yeah, it's a pretty strong game.
Yeah, and for a platforming game in 2024, like that's a 3D platforming game. That's pretty wild. It has to be special for that to be the case.
Yep. Yeah, that would not be the thing that you would say would be the PlayStation 5 killer app, but
no, I didn't see it coming, to be honest. Like there wasn't much of a big hype train or anything, and then bam.
Yeah. Huh.
Cool.
Well, I actually did, instead of buying a PlayStation 5, I did buy something.
Ooh. I had in my head this thing was a game name, but now that you have said that, yes. Okay.
Yeah. So I bought the Quest 3 headset.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking to get into more of like the cardio fitness stuff.
Oh, sure.
Because Beat Saber is kind of grew long in the tooth for us.
Yeah,
at this point,
it's understandable.
We got our hours out of it, or hundreds of hours, I would say.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of like free fitness stuff on there that's like actually pretty decent.
Yep. And we're just diving in now, but yeah, between the only other thing that I've played is, on a PSVR, and this thing is just such a massive upgrade to that.
Isn't it wild? Like just the difference cutting a cord makes, like it just really gives you so much more immersion.
Yep. And the resolution is huge for me too. 'Cause on the older sets, you had that screen door effect that you could see kind of between the pixels, and that if they ever shut the screen off and you just saw that, I got sick almost immediately.
Sure.
And this kind of gets rid of that.
But, yeah, and the whole like room scaling and like drawing your play space, like compared to like what the PlayStation is just, it's like infinitely better. And being able to toggle, in and out of, reality and the game modes when you need to like answer a kid's question quickly. It's so nice.
Yep.
Yeah. What things have you bought and installed so far?
So we're on the free trial. They have, like a plus subscription thing.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And we ended up trying that because the games that they was on there was ones that we were probably interested in. One of them is my staff pick for later, but a couple other ones was a good mini golf game.
Okay.
Played that one. What was the other one? Green Hell is another one that's on there right now. I
didn't know that was on Quest.
Yeah,
that would be kind of. I could see that being a little rough.
Yeah. It's interesting, but it's I don't have my legs underneath me yet for the move a stick and not move in real life type sickness.
Yeah.
Maybe someday, but yeah, that I can only take so much of that before I get flush, and then you're like, oh, I'm done.
If you want to get real nauseous, there's a free app on their storefront that is a roller coaster, and it is.
Oh yes, I did that.
Okay,
yes.
I get very sick with that one.
Yeah, I did not like that either. That was not good either.
Yeah.
I've heard that those are better if you're sitting down, but even so, I think it's probably still not great.
Yeah, I've tried it both ways. Not amazing. Have you done Walk the Plank? I highly recommend that.
Oh, no. What is that one about?
Buy that one. There's a little more to it, but basically you are at the bottom of a building and you walk in and you press the elevator button and the doors open and you're like 12 stories up and there's a plank that you literally walk out. It is fucking scary. And then you can change it up. There's like plank with spiders, like plank with like evil, then there's a couple other things, but like just the experience and like watching people walk that plank and like lose their shit and then inevitably falling is great.
Yep. Yeah. It's cool to have like multitasking things in it too, where you can open up one window and go the other things. And
I'm sure the controller is much better on the Quest 3 too, right? Like there's more, probably more accuracy. And are there more triggers than on the Quest?
There's two triggers on the Quest on each side or on each controller.
It might be the same as the one I've got. So maybe, but I know it is definitely an upgraded controller for.
It doesn't have the hoop,
the Quest 3
like the Quest 2 has.
Which is probably good because the hoop I always thought was a little weird.
Can you do it without controllers?
I don't think so.
Okay. There are some things that support it on this one where you can.
It'll just recognize your hand.
It tracks your hand. Yeah.
That's pretty sweet. What's battery life like?
2 hours around there.
Okay. That's about the Quest 2. And if they sell it, which I assume they do, I highly recommend the added like head strap battery pack thing, because not only is the head strap infinitely more comfortable, but like the counterweight really balances better. So the whole thing feels better on your head.
Yeah. That's probably my biggest complaint for how much like it just, especially with glasses, how bad it just sits on your face.
Yeah. Yeah. I know they're not cheap. I want to say like the one for the Quest 2 was like 150 or 175 bucks, but like it was, I almost consider that like an essential purchase because it just makes it so much more comfortable. And then you can get a few hours out of it. But I mean, I guess most of the time you're not going for more than 2 hours into VR anyway, right? Like hour session feels like more than adequate.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And apparently you can hook it up to PC and do those too, but I haven't done
that's what I heard. You just get a cable, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet.
Apparently you can do it across your router, but that seems like a disaster. You know, any latency from movement, you're gonna be getting sick. But
you need that newfangled Wi-Fi 7 or whatever they're talking about. Which those routers look like PlayStation Pro is like in size. Looks like they're massive.
I don't need cancer, Ryan. Come on.
Yeah. Not yet. Yeah. Plus Wi-Fi 7 just seems like one of those things where it's going to work with like 1/3 of your current devices. Like, I don't know if you run into this quite a bit, but like if you buy a cheaper electronics TAT, it's like it will not recognize like 5.0. It's like you have to go with like 2.4. It's like, well, that was pointless.
Yep. And then like all your other older devices are on that, and it's like your small one can't even keep up. Yeah.
Yep. So how much is the Quest 3? Did you get it on sale?
No, it was kind of a gut purchase.
Sure.
But $500, I think it is.
Okay. Well, it's not bad though. I mean, what is the Quest 2 was always hovering around like 4, right? For the
I think version. It's gone down quite a bit now. I think it's around 200 or something.
Okay.
But it's kind of worth it to be ahead of the game a little bit.
My biggest concern is like, I don't trust Meta and their storefront and ecosystem. So I'm just waiting for the day that they're like, year 2 is no longer supported and you won't be able to play your games. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's coming and I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but.
Yeah. The kids haven't really played it because it really is. I would say a large majority of the most popular games are basically like lobbies for kids to say the most vile shit possible.
That tracks.
So it's tough to be. I don't know. The moderation is maybe not so great on that platform, I would say, but.
Yeah, my son plays that Gorilla Tag all the time, and you just hear trash talking like nonstop. And there's some Roblox stuff. Like I know it's not all Roblox, but you can definitely play Roblox games in there. And Roblox is always hot trash for kids, just saying awful shit. It's amazing. Yeah, well, that's cool. That's a good one. Like if I didn't have the 2 already, I would definitely go for a 3 because they're solid devices for not needing any other hardware in that price point. Like it's hard to argue with the value you get and the functionality.
Right. Yeah. Cause it really is at the point where you're not noticing, like the PlayStation one, it was just like, okay, you could see the holes, the tracking with the Move controllers sucked. And
every fucking time you turned your head, like the whole thing came out of focus. Yeah. It was just like, it was always fighting, letting you immerse yourself, where I feel like with the hardware and the better, there's some cheap, shitty games too, obviously, but the better games, it really does feel pretty immersive. Even like that. I even just get impressed with like that home, like hub world or whatever. And like you can decorate, like have your own background, whatever. Just like, I don't know. It probably took me like a week of owning it before I realized like I could turn around. I had like other rooms and shit. And I was like, this is amazing. I just want to hang out in here. Like, this is cool. Yep. Yeah. It's funny. It's funny that nobody else has really been able to do it as successfully. Like I know Valve's got their thing too, but Quest has really nailed it as far as like tech, price, and functionality. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
If only,
I mean, obviously Apple's doing their thing, that. But yeah.
Well, Apple's also, charging us $1,300 for basically the same phone fucking last year too. So that was a great announcement.
Mm-hmm.
But you can do higher end gaming now because we figured out how to cool it better. It's like, who gives a shit? I don't want to play on my phone anyway. Like, I don't want to play Resident Evil 2 remake on my iPhone. I'm sorry. Like, That's not that cool.
No, at that point, just perfect the streaming part of it,
Right.
If you want to do that type of gaming.
Yes. Yeah. I think you'd get that to work, like where Apple AirPlay would like be good enough that you could just use your phone as your console too and like pair a controller. Maybe they'll get there. I don't know. I thought that part was
maybe,
funny.
Maybe they'll let the Xbox thing back on the app. Who knows?
Ooh. I just wanted to touch on the Dreamcast thing because I know I already kind of mentioned limited run. So there's a bunch of stuff going on right now because it's the Dreamcast's 25th. $99.99 was the launch. But did you catch this bullshit that limited run is doing for this thing?
I saw all the merch. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sucks that it's all exclusive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all exclusive. They're doing just like branded bullshit with Sony's licensing, and they're doing like trading cards and limited trading card. Like half of it was like trading card pack, trading card booster pack, trading card box for cards. And I'm like, fuck this. And it's all stupidly priced. And then they're like, but it'll start shipping in March of next year. It's like, fuck off. Fuck you. You're making t-shirts and cards and you're telling me it's not coming out for another 6 fucking months.
And you're celebrating a specific time. Like, why don't you have that shit now when it's on people's mind? You know when it's going to happen.
Do what your model is. Make a limited run of this shit that's already made and it should have been dropped. Place your order on $99.99. You know what I mean? I don't know. That company pisses me off so much. And this seemed like just such a shitty bullshit cash grab that it just irritated me the second I saw it.
Yeah. It's disappointing that Sega just couldn't pull it off themselves. You know, really.
I agree. I don't need a limited run reaching into more facets of retro gaming culture. They've already done enough. Fuck them.
Yeah, they're a blight.
They really are
on a lot of that level of nostalgic stuff that I like, for sure, and it just sucks.
You know what else is a blight on nostalgic stuff that you like? This whole Linkin Park thing. I'm not even going to comment on like how everybody's pissed about the allegations and the Scientology and the Danny Masterson stuff. I just like was very frustrated that they did that 100-hour countdown thing, then had it count back up, and then in that teased a thing for 9/5, and then the announcement was just kind of like a live stream, and Linkin Park's back with a female vocalist, which is fine, but then when you really look at what this reunion is, it's like, okay, they got a replacement for the second singer, filling in for Chester. They got a new drummer. They have a permanent touring guitarist because their original guitarist will only contribute in studio. So it's like, okay, you've got half of a band coming, and that's fine. That happens all the time. You got half of a band coming back in. You've made a choice. You can't, it's almost always impossible to replace the lead singer and have that go perfectly smoothly. But then they've done a direction with a female vocalist that then forever changes your live show and your back catalog too. So it feels like maybe they just should have done a name change, because they started out as Zero. And then once Chester kind of came into the mix, it was Hybrid Theory. And then when they put out an album, they were Linkin Park. And the album was called Hybrid Theory. So why not? I don't mind the 0 hour naming for the new album, but why not name this new band 0 Hour and name your debut album Linkin Park to commemorate this new genre and shift? And, they've asked, Mike Shinoda has been asked for that in interviews, why, okay, you guys spent all this time, you did all this, like, why keep it as Linkin Park? He's like, well, it just sounded like Linkin Park. It's like, well, everyone expects what you're going to do to sort of sound like Linkin Park. But I think you did it because you knew that if you release it as Linkin Park, you're guaranteed a #1 in the Billboard rock charts. I think that's why you did it.
Yeah. And any tour, then they, people know that, oh, you're going to hear the old stuff
Some
too.
stuff. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It just, and I didn't mind the new, I don't mind the new vocalists. I think her range fits for some of their old stuff. I think their new song is just fine. But at the end of the day, it sounds like the part of Linkin Park that I didn't care about, which was pretty much everything after Meteora. So it's like, yeah, we're getting more of that sort of sound, but I don't know. It just feels like a little disingenuous as a fan.
Yeah. Well, and that's a funny part because like they still have like the original DJ guy, but it's like, what songs have they been using that has any of that shit in it anymore anyway?
Right. He's probably just mostly hitting like synth recordings on like a pad at this point.
Yeah. I'll say probably the most disturbing thing was maybe in the new song is Shinoda is singing more than rapping. So that's probably, that's the direction I don't like.
Yeah. Yeah. His stuff. I mean, and I know he was always kind of like pretty heavily in on the creative direction and writing the songs and lyrics and stuff. So I guess it makes sense that he maybe had to start doing that because in the interim when they were trying to figure things out, but the songs where he has chosen to sing have never been like my favorite tracks off of old Linkin Park albums. I don't know. It's just a weird thing. I think they should have just said we're the remaining members. And like, I think that would have been more respectful to Chester's legacy and like what the band was, because clearly it's never going to be the band that, everyone wants them to be, it's, and they haven't been, I would argue. Like, I don't think how many people gave a shit about the last 2 albums they put out.
No.
I mean, Minutes to Midnight was maybe the last time where people were like, had eyes on them and paying attention. But that one kind of, I don't know, that divided the audience pretty heavily too. I mean, it was mostly a pop album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And, even the attempts that, they tried to reach back into the more harder stuff, it was just kind of like, oh, okay, well, it's kind of the same. Yeah. I don't know. Bands get to that point where like, even though you can put out new good shit, sometimes people just only like the old stuff, right? I mean, that's most bands probably, but.
Right. And as you get older, like you don't want to retread and like you don't like the same music, you did when you were younger. You're not as angry or, half baked as far as like your emotions go. Like as you become a more whole person, your music, I would imagine just kind of, that's why bands tame down over time, not all of them, but a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not opposed to it. It just kind of left me scratching my head a little bit, especially after hearing the new song. And like it's getting played all the time on rock radio. I'm just like, this is fine. It's a rock radio song, but it just seems like somebody dunked some Hailstorm into my like Minutes to Midnight Linkin Park or something, or actually, you know what really irritates me is that guitar riffs, which is very Linkin Parky. It just reminds me, it's very iterative of the stuff they were doing, like for those Transformer soundtracks. It's sort of like where's the new Michael Bay movie that this is accompanying? You know what I mean?
And I don't know. Yeah, that was. I feel like that's when everybody kind of got off, or at least the original fans kind of got off. Every Transformers movie had a new Linkin Park song, and it was like, okay, this is, and she does fine for the older songs. I mean, she, like you said, there's a decent crossover in their voice, but like, you wouldn't listen to the new song and say, oh my gosh, this is 100% Linkin Park,
right? Yeah, what would have been interesting to see them do was something that August Burns Red is doing right now, where like they'd switched lead singers like over a decade ago now. And they've got an album coming up that's on like a 20th anniversary. So what they're doing is like re-recording that all as the band with the new vocalists to like celebrate, the previous music and then like with the new sound. Like I think that would have been a cool thing to see them do.
Yeah.
As an introduction or like the number one hits or something, just like redone with a new band and then drop a new album. So you've got like a 1-2,
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, it's an impossible situation because there's no way you take a band of that stature who lost the singer in that way and have it come out and be a smooth transition at all. So
no, I mean, at the end of the day, it's money.
Oh, 100%. Because none of them should need it because I bet that Michael Bay Transformers money is still rolling in pretty good.
Yeah.
I did see just a side blurb in rock news. I don't know. Did you see that social media post from Dave Grohl?
No.
Where it's just like, I'm welcoming a new baby girl into the world outside of my marriage. I was like, okay. That's a social media post that went in a different direction than I thought. Congrats, I guess. Sorry for your wife and current children, but
that's rough.
Yeah, it's a little rough. So, I mean, he'll be fine. He's got plenty of money. Probably gonna have to buy a new house though.
Yeah.
Rockstar problems.
Child support. Yeah.
Yeah, he can swing it. So you've been watching The Boys?
Yeah. I think the last 2 seasons I haven't. I was 2 seasons behind now because the most recent one was pretty recent. It came out. So I did finish the second to newest, and it's kind of relevant to this podcast because Dean from Supernatural is a major part of that season. Have you watched this season or no?
I haven't watched any of the seasons, but from what I can tell, like he's been in it, and I've heard there's been a few other cameos from other Supernatural world. I think the father actor.
Yep, the father's in there. The one that like is so overtly a reference. The man running for president. His name is Robert Singer, and it is that actor.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
They're doing that. I mean, it is overtly that reference, So that was pretty cool.
Is he from South Dakota as a governor originally? That'd be even better.
Dakota Bob, they call him. Yep.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yep.
That's so good.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Because it is the same showrunner, right? There was a guy that did the original 5-season stint of Supernatural, right?
Yep, I think so. Yeah.
Nice.
And that show just continues. I mean, it goes in places that it's like, I can't believe that anybody signed off on this. It's ridiculous television. But this newest season, boy, it's a satire of the current U.S. political climate, I would say.
Which is maybe a little too close to home when you're like living in it.
Yeah, I would say I'm not liking it too much because it's not even like a clever satire of it. It's pretty on the nose to the point where I think that they think they're being clever about it, but it's like, no, you're not. This is just, you're being so overtly pointing the arrow at everything around you, saying, yep.
People turn to shows like this to forget the reality that we live in. We don't want to like double down on it. This isn't great.
Yep.
That's too bad. So you're not on the current season. This is one season back. So they've been doing this.
So I'm on the current season now.
Oh, it is current now.
That's what gets into all the politics stuff now.
Lame.
Yeah, I'll probably finish it. But I don't know. I have a love-hate relationship with that show, I would say. It's like, it's enjoyable while you watch it, but then like the minute you're done with it, you're like, well, this is just dumb.
Yeah, I've like read interviews, from like some of the cast in that show too, and like how like even just being a regular on the show, because like it's just such a toxic masculinity type show that like it's just exhausting. Like when they're done rapping for a season, they're just like, I need a fucking break from that mind space. So I'll have to get to that at some point. Because what does that air on? Is that Prime or is that HBO?
Yeah, that's Prime.
Okay, so I can watch it. I've got access to a couple people's Prime accounts. So
yeah,
I should get to it, especially just for the supernatural aspect of it.
Yeah, that part was fun. Yeah.
Which we got to be getting closer to that damn reboot. I'm waiting for some definitive news on that.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't on my topic list, but I'll just bounce off. I think I mentioned a couple episodes ago about the Umbrella Academy. Finished it. I'm not as mad about it as most people are. It feels rushed. Like I think they probably ran into timing, budgeting, or something, but it has a conclusive ending that I can live with. Didn't think it was that bad. I don't know. Third best season, probably. I mean, out of 4.
Okay.
But
that's the end of it's a like end of show.
Yep. Finale. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's some storylines that don't really go anywhere, make a lot of sense, but it was enjoyable start to finish. So not gonna complain. What I am gonna complain about though, I was gonna circle back on something you'd mentioned, and electric lawnmower. So let me give you a little sneak peek of what I've been dealing with for good luck, I guess you could say. So we have needed to stain our deck for quite a while. So, May comes around this year. I get like the chemicals, I do the treatment, I get everything ready, all the wood prepped so we can stain. And then we proceeded to have like monsoons basically our entire summer. So I never got more than 2 days without rain to allow me to ever get my deck done. So like we had it all,
you didn't mow the yard too.
Right. So anyway, finally got to it. So Labor Day weekend, I came back. We were out of town. I came back Sunday specifically just so I get the first coat of stain on, get another coat of stain on Monday. Then hopefully everything's cured good enough that by Wednesday we can walk on that thing. And then I was like, I really want to go the extra mile on this one because the stain stuff sucks. It always only ever lasts a couple of years and then we get like worn paths in it. I was like, I'm going to get an extra layer of clear coat, put that on there. This thing's going to last like 2 more years, right? So I go to Menards, I'm looking at a couple of them products. I buy this thing called Weather Shield. I was like, that sounds perfect. So I'm like clear coat application. I put it on. And I was like, man, this thing's like kind of thick, like as I'm putting it on, right? But I was like, I did a test area. I was like, oh, it dries clear, right? So do the whole deck. I come out the next day. It looks like fucking shit. I was like, what the fuck? Like it didn't dry evenly at all. Like it's not looking right. And then I look at the can again and I realize that those sons of bitches put a latex based clear coat right in with all the rest of like, it's 100% my fault, right in with all the other stain. But I swear to Christ on this gallon can, the fucking text that says latex based paint is in like size, like 10-point font. So yes, I'm a complete idiot. It was my fault. The product was labeled, but for fuck's sake. So I'm immediately furious because now, if you know anything about paint, like you can't like stain and stuff that is oil based does not adhere to latex. So I can't just paint over this now. Like that will not work. I mean, I can, but it will not last. It will not work long term. And I know that this layer is not going to adhere to what it's on top of. So I come to the realization that now I have to sand down my entire fucking deck. So I did that. And then we restained it. And this is just the start of my fun. So now it's all done. Deck looks gorgeous now. But then also like this last weekend, I'm like, okay, we're going to finish up like some of the extra trim and like staining we have to do on the deck. Cause like we're going to do some touch up spots, get some of their paint. I was like, let me mow the lawn first so that we can do that. And then I won't blow any like shit on the thing. Right. I mow 1/3 of my backyard and run out of gas. So I fill up my mower and then I go to pull the son of a bitch. It is just that crank cord is just seized up. So I'm like, son of a bitch. I'm like, all right, I'm going to take the recoil thing apart, thinking like I'll pop a couple screws off, whatever. I pull the plastic cover off this thing and then realize that I'm basically going to have to disassemble this entire engine to just get to the point where I can get to the cord. And I was like, this is not worth a day of my time. So I'm like, fuck it. We're going to Menards again. I'm for the 3rd time this week, thanks to all my fuck ups. And I'm going to buy a mower and it's end of season, bad timing anyway. They have like nothing gas powered in stock, and anything they have starts at like $500 for even the most basic gas mower. I was like, this is nuts. I was like, well, screw it. Like, there's an electric mower here that's $230. I don't have that big of a yard. Like, I'm just doing it. So I buy it, bring it home. I love that thing. Like, for my yard, I can get the whole thing done in a charge. It weighs like 15 pounds. It's a little concerning that the housing is made of plastic too, because I'm just thinking of like that blade flying off, like punching through there and like capping me off at the ankles. Yeah. But I'm trying not to think about that. But like, yeah, the ease of use, the fact that I don't have to fuck with gas, oil changes, not a lot, like I was changing oil on a lawnmower anyway. I just let them go until they blow up. Maybe that's why my cord didn't work. But like, it's great. Like, I don't know the longevity of it. I mean, it was very cheap, but I think I'm kind of sold on this whole crazy electric mower thing, at least for a small yard. I can see why you were frustrated in your application, but.
Oh yeah. I mean, for what you got there, that's like if you can get it done in one charge.
Yeah.
That's the right way to go. As long as the batteries hold out, I don't know. You know, there are some things with that where it's like, well, maybe that outpaces what the cost of gas is and all that. But
yeah, that was my thought too. But even if I got to the point where after a few years, if I had to do like the front yard, charge, go eat lunch or do something else, and then I think I'd be okay with that if I could get a few years out of it. But yeah, my main concern right now is just the longevity, but just the difference in like pushing those, because they can be so lightweight because they're not carrying a motor on them. It's just so much easier. Granted, you can get lawnmowers and stuff that have like self-propelled and things, but this thing is, I basically feel like I'm mowing the lawn with one of those like bubble Fisher Price mowers. Yeah, it's like, it's about that light. Yeah. Yeah. So pleasantly surprised, not happy that I had to drop a couple $100 on top of my already amazing week, but it is what it is. So I don't know. This electric thing might not be all bad. Yeah. And then I was thinking about like doing the experiment of like, do I start charging it off of my Eco Flow battery bank that I can recharge with solar? Then I'm truly getting like free lawn mowing. Then I can pretend I'm better than everybody because I'm going green.
You put the solar panel right on the mower.
Yes. I like that. You
could go forever, right?
Yeah. Great idea. I probably won't ever bother with that. I'm going to have to do the experiment of like, can I fully charge those batteries off of one of my EcoFlow charges? Because I can recharge the thing in about 2 hours of premium sun. It'd be an experiment that'd be worth it. In no way am I delusional enough to think that doing that will, over the life cycle of this mower, offset the sunken cost into the mower and the EcoFlow and the solar panel, but at least it could partially justify it, right?
Right. I would be concerned, like, if there still has to be an application for like big gas riding lawnmowers, you know, like zero turns and all that. Like, I can't imagine those could ever get to a point where you could do electric on those unless they had gigantic car batteries on them. But
you'd think the weight on them would just be so substantial.
Yeah.
For like, then you'd be like in Tesla mowers, and you'd be in their territory where it's like, oh, you can't fix it at all yourself. So yeah, I see that being problematic. Although they do have snowmobiles that function all off of battery power now. So if you can get a snowmobile to work, maybe you could pull off a mower.
Yeah, it just depends on how long because I mean, a snowmobile, you just go as long as the battery goes, and you're like, well, that was fun, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's more recreation than practical purpose. Yeah, that's a good point. I saw Fargo public schools have like fully switched over to those Works self mowing like robots. So like everywhere you go in town, that's like a Fargo public school, like field, the schools themselves have got these robots like all over the place. And I guess somebody like stole one, which of course they have them GPS. So like the cops went and were like, can we have it back, please? Like, I don't know what you're thinking, but yeah, it seems to be a hit. I'm curious as to like how long those things will last, though, like functioning well for the investment that the school put into them or the school system put into them. But
yeah, because those things run almost 24. I mean, like every day, right?
Yeah, they do a little bit. Yeah. And I would consider something like that for my backyard, but it's like it's not going to take into account like kids' toys left on the ground or dog shit that it's going to run over. So,
yep,
probably not worth the headache. But for you with your open spaces,
thought about trying to make one, but
I like this idea.
I would, yeah. I don't know. Like the things I've made before did not have sharp blades on them. So
I like the villain arc scenario in this one where you just realize you've made like a kick-ass like battle bot and you're like terrorizing the neighborhood with this.
Yeah. Oh, your dog's in my yard. Wait till my robot's in yours.
That'd be great. Yeah. Well, are we that's staff picks, I think, huh?
Yeah, let's go for it.
I'm curious to hear more about yours.
Yeah, mine's the Beat Saber replacement in our household. It's a similar rhythm game on the MetaQuest that is called Synth Riders. And instead of having little blocks that you have to shove a lightsaber through certain directions, this is just putting basically note blocks everywhere, and you just have to have them in the same position that they're at, right? So it's a lot less, I think the Beat Saber thing, the faster it got, the more it was like you were just flicking wrists.
Right.
So you weren't really doing very much of a workout. Even you would think that you would get more exercise out of it the harder they got, but I think it was the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Where this really makes you put your arms all over the place. To the point where my shoulders, like I've played Beat Saber a lot, but my shoulders could not handle a few days of this where they're sore, Really? Where I never had that with Beat Saber. So,
because it like that static placement is forcing you to like reach out there and do it.
Yep.
Okay. And is it billed as like a workout type thing, or is it more just like they're billing it as a rhythm game that requires movement?
They're straight. They're pretty much not too shy in straight up copying Beat Saber. Even the modes and all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
There are some different things. I think Beat Saber has this now, but there's kind of like a rail system. So like, the notes kind of has a trailing rail on it, and you have to just kind of keep it where the rail goes. So
okay,
there's more movement and more challenge to that. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty excited about it.
I mean, if you're gonna blatantly rip off a VR game, like what better one to take heavy inspiration from than the best VR game, right?
Yeah, the best sell, the one that's probably made the most money.
Yeah.
And since the Quest is an Android device, you can sideload it, and then all of a sudden there's thousands of custom songs that are which are, it's weird because the actual website of this game explains how to do this, and they have the songs on there, which is, it's kind of like, how has not some lawyer found this yet?
Yeah.
But
yeah, that seems, I mean, it's one thing if you're pointing to like a subreddit for something weird, but if it's on your actual site on like how to import and pirate game or songs.
I mean, they even have filters of like, what band do you want to, what songs from what band? And,
but obviously are they fan creations? Because the company I wouldn't imagine is doing it, right? Like they're just giving
I think they're all fan creations, which I used to do that with Guitar Hero stuff. Is like make all these custom things, and the quality in that stuff varied quite a bit. It would be pretty hard to find ones that actually felt good.
Right.
So we'll see.
These are better, or you're not sure?
I haven't got the custom ones in there yet.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that goes. Pretty cool. Well, that's cool. I should see if that one's on 2. Look for that.
I bet it is.
Okay. Check it out.
The problem with I think it's on the subscription thing that we have right now. I mean, I think that's the biggest problem with VR games is they are so expensive. They never go on sale. And I mean, I don't blame the developers. They have to recoup the cost of like a small niche community, but
right. Yeah, the quality ones for sure anyway are always like they hold their $30 price points or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, my staff pick, I just stumbled across this yesterday, I think, is House of Protection, which is a new band. It's not really that new there. So I don't know if anyone's ever listened to the Fever 333, which are still a band. But this is the guitarist and the drummer, which Fever 333 was only a 3-person band anyway. So it was guitar, drummer, and vocalist. Apparently the vocalist and the rest of the band didn't get along, so they split. And this is their new project. But I'd say we're like a lot of Fever. I like Fever 333. But I think they always felt like they were trying maybe to lean a little too much into like we're the new Rage Against the Machine. And this new outing leans more into like some pop, and there's still some heavier rock. But some of those elements, I think it's a better band for it. And I like that they just kept themselves as a 2-piece. They didn't seek out a new vocalist. So the guitarist he was also in the Chariot, which Chariot's amazing on their own, which again is another band that like the Chariot and Fever 333 are like bands that you see live, right? Like their recordings never going to do adjust. It's their live shows that are insane. So he sang some in the last band, but he does co-vocals on this, and then the drummer does too, which I always love bands where the drummer will like take on part of the singing, because like that's such a fucking workout of an instrument, and to do that and like carry a vocal piece too is always just cool to see. I think they just have an EP coming out. I went ahead and pre-ordered it. It was stupid. Well, the EP was cheap, but they wanted $15 for shipping, which always pisses me off. But I've listened to all the songs they have available now. The one that caught my eye was the new one that came out with a music video called like Pulling Teeth or something like that. But anyway, it's like one of the wildest music videos because I can't remember where they said they fly to. But they film it in a wall of death, like one of those circus, like, motorcycles drive around it. So they're in the center in like, I don't know where the fuck, like third world country somewhere, in this sketchy ass wall of death with like a Pinto going around it and like motorcycles and stuff. I was like, that is the most unnecessary risk for a band that like essentially has zero following at this point anyway. Like, you guys are nuts. But yeah, it's not going to be a band that's for everybody, but I think if you like the other stuff that these guys have been in, and I think the drummer actually, well, he's been in another band too, but I think he was actually touring drummer for Goldfinger for a while around the pandemic. I don't think he is anymore. But if you're into that stuff, it's good. Like, I recommend it. It's kind of interesting of the songs they've released so far, like how all of them vary in style quite a bit, but it's all solid. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure the name of the band. I think it's kind of hokey, but music's good. House of Protection.
Well, I always check out your music stuff because
I really like what you like.
So.
Yes.
Yep.
It's true.
Premium taste. Yep.
I have a certain style. That's for sure.
If you're having a good time with us at Weekend Rental, I think you might enjoy all the great geeky stuff found on the Geekade Podcast Network. They've got podcasts about games, music, movies, and more. Plus, if you order off their secret menu, also known as the Geekade Patreon, you just might find an exclusive movie podcast hosted by Ryan and myself. Check it out over at geekade.com. And hey, if you'd like to turn Weekend Rental into a true multimedia experience, our YouTube and Twitch channels might just be for you.
Well, I guess that brings us to our weekend rental. So the weekend rental, we pick a game for a given system. We give it a playthrough and give our opinions as to whether we would buy, rent, or burn that game. We're going back to the Game Boy Advance because Nintendo's just putting a lot of stuff out on the Switch Online, and we're playing. Is it F-Zero High Velocity? Is the full title?
Maximum Velocity.
Yeah, that might be velocity of some sort. This was. I don't know. This one's an interesting one to me because I didn't play it during the Game Boy Advance life cycle. I think I picked it up later as a collector, and it always kind of struck me as odd because Nintendo during the era of the Game Boy Advance was very into nostalgia and just polishing up what had been on the Super Nintendo. So where we got a lot of like ports with enhancements or bonus modes for all the mainline Mario games and things like that. And there's some other games too. It's weird that they chose to do with the racing games because did this with Mario Kart also, but Mario Kart also featured the old tracks, and maybe this does once you unlock it. They went new with these franchises, and they decided we're going to do a new standalone F-Zero when they could have just added a couple things to the classic, right? Because this game does some weird stuff that I don't like. Yeah. Mainly like the main boost mechanic. I think it kind of breaks F-Zero for me. I think if I had never played F-Zero, this would seem totally fine. But having grown up with F-Zero and then playing this, I really struggle with earning one boost per lap that is like engage until fuel runs out. And then I don't understand that decision. I think it ruins the game.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing strategic about it then, you know?
No, you wait for the straightaway, you punch it, rinse and repeat, and then hope you don't fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when it looks just like the original. They could have gone in a direction if you're making something new to spruce it up in a different way. But it's got all of that kind of pixelation weirdness that a Mode 7 type F-Zero was in early Mode 7.
Right. Yeah, it seems like the only thing they tried to enhance with the new hardware was they like pseudo 3D rendered the ships. They pop a little more, and then the sound design is much better. It's much fuller. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Game Boy Advance had a great sound chip, but you're right. It really, other than that, feels pretty stock. And I would say like from the outset, the level designs and everything even seem a lot safer and more tamer. There's fewer courses early on where you feel like you're fighting the course, which is ultimately what the original F-Zero came down to. It's not so much racing other players. It's keeping yourself alive. And you do start to run into that here, but it feels like they reprioritize this one to be like less frustrating in that way. But then they put in just copious amounts of like secondary vehicles that are always in your way, and then yes. Yeah. And then hyper aggressive AI that kicks in pretty hard early on, even on like baby settings, to the point where I stopped having fun way sooner than I should have.
Yeah. The rubber banding in this game is if the people are behind you, they're going to stay right on your ass. If they get ahead of you, good luck. You have to be masterful to catch up to them.
100%.
You cannot make a mistake. You have to get out front and stay there.
Yes.
That's this game.
Yes. Yeah. And, again, going back to that boost thing, like that was the core mechanic of the first one. Was like, yes, the like recharge pad at the entrance of each new lap also repaired your ship damage, but then it topped off your boost meter, and like how effective you were at negotiating that and getting in there during the right time or deciding to slow down and pick up more healing and more boosting was super strategic to the gameplay. So when you really take that away and make that only about recovering damage, but then giving you a boost regardless, a full boost, and you can cash them. It breaks the strategy in what little strategy F-Zero had beyond, just pure grit and skill and determination.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why they made that design choice.
Yeah. And every course, at least the ones I played, was like, this is where you use the boost.
Yes.
Like this is.
And it's almost always like at the lap restart, right? Because always, there's always a straightaway. And I didn't find any inventive shortcuts. You know what I mean? Like that was the other thing, was like, you could skip this part of the track in the other game if you did this. Like I didn't discover any of those early on in my playthrough, at least. I mean, I found areas you could cut through, because if you had boost, but some of like the wild risk taking, like track jumps, make or break moves were absent. So I don't know. I when you're playing it, you see that they've got the options for multi-cart versus, play, or single cart versus play. I think that's a cool addition on a portable type game. But I don't know. I think this kind of does the franchise dirty. I don't mean to say it's a bad game. It is not a bad game, but it's just a lesser iteration of a game that is, you're either going to love or hate. I mean, nobody's on the fence with F-Zero. You either can't stand it or you really got hooked on it,
Yeah. And what I ran into was I got to a course finally that it was like the width of the track was very restrictive. It was very small. And going around corners, it was impossible to not end up on the side. No matter what, no matter how much you basically went to almost a complete standstill, and I still couldn't. You still like drift, and I'm like, I know this did not feel like this in the original.
Yep.
So I booted that up. I booted the original up to be like, I know. And sure enough, no, it's way less drifting. You have
because dropping your edge in meant something in that first game. Like you were you were locked.
Yep. So this evening, basically, I was like, there's got to be something else, because there's a few corners there that there's no way you could have done it. And I looked up other people's tips, and they say in this game specifically, any corner you take, you basically just have to press up and down on the gas. And I tried that, and it's like, wow, this is amazing. It corners exactly how you want to.
But the problem with that, though, is I started using that strategy some too, like letting off the gas, but the AI doesn't have to do that. The AI takes those corners full speed. So yes, you can maintain your control, but you're also losing the race. And did you notice too that they knew that the cornering was sloppy? Because one of the frustrating things and hurdles to like overcoming the first game was the ping pong effect off the wall. They severely nerfed that in this Game Boy Advance version, where it's way less severe. And I think they did that because they know you're slamming off those walls, because they just didn't get the cornering right. Yeah. And I think that's just a makeup of, I think it's a byproduct of bad game design. So they tried to make it easier in that regard, instead of just fixing the problem, which is being able to actually control your goddamn ship.
Yep. And I didn't have enough time to really like start over anew with that strategy. So I did try it, and it worked like a dream then, but like compared to the original, it just felt so wrong. Like diving into the corner and not being able to, even on a wide corner, and still ending up on the outside wall it was so frustrating that it was like, felt so bad. And I'm like, I know F-Zero is not like this. So it's weird. And why is there no Captain Falcon, man? Like, come on. Yeah. He's the dude. When did this come out, before or after the 64 version? I was trying to be after, right? Because we were into GameCube by the time this came out. I think so. Okay. And then, like Smash Brothers brought Captain Falcon, kind of like I was surprised that there wasn't more. I mean, the original was so bare bones to like getting into the game, like that you understood because it was a mode 7 demo pretty much.
Yeah.
And this game is the same thing. There's no like, you don't get any character portrait, no nothing. You know, you see the car and you go.
Well, you know, and it's funny too, because it's like we had already had F-Zero 64. I don't know where it fell with F-Zero X. Is that the one on the GameCube? But like, yeah, with the hardware, like F-Zero has kind of always relied on the premise of like, it's a tech demo to push like the craziness of what we can do with the hardware now. So it's like, why didn't they try to do any of the stuff that the Game Boy Advance could have done? Like they probably could have had terrain in this one. Like there could have been rolling hills or tunnels, or, you know, they could have really gone somewhere wild. And I feel like they just tried to play the safe bet and get a nostalgia grab, or maybe go back to reset history for the people that didn't like what the 64 one had to offer. I don't get it.
Is there one or two other ones on the Game Boy Advance?
Really? I didn't know that.
I know one of them has like Captain Falcon on the cover, so that one's maybe a little bit more story focused or something. I'm not sure.
I'm gonna have to dig through my collection now and see which one I have, because I know I have one of them. It probably is this one. I didn't realize there were multiples. That's interesting.
Yeah,
for a game that like seems to get like once on a system if you're lucky love, the fact that you got multiple on the Game Boy Advance is wild.
Yeah.
What is the last one?
Well,
Nintendo
99.
Land. Oh well, that's true. Okay, if we're gonna count that
counts. Yeah,
I guess it does. Like they acknowledge that they still make F-Zero. I guess I don't know. Well, I don't know. What are you gonna give this thing on the Byron Burns scale?
I was before I figured out how to handle and corner. I would have safely put this in a burn, but I think it upgraded to a rental for me, because I mean, at least there is a way to control it. The AI kind of sucks. It's pretty bad, pretty hard, pretty unfair. But it's still F-Zero at heart, and it definitely had me. It was not a relaxing game. No. You know, you're on your edge of your seat. That's
indicative, of the series.
Yeah. Especially when the game is like, you can not make any mistakes, so you better
get good,
be paying attention.
Yeah.
Yep.
I could make an argument for it being a rent. I think the more we talk about it, though, I think I'm going to burn it, just because it doesn't bring anything good to the formula. Like if you want to enjoy like this style of F-Zero and truly enjoy it, like just go to the original. Like it plays better. It looks pretty much the same. The sound's not as great, but it's iconic. It's a great soundtrack. And I feel like there's just more strategy and depth in the race mechanics. I don't really know what they were thinking here.
Yeah, that's a good point. I really did hate the traffic. Like I don't.
Yes.
It just seemed like just an FU mechanic to like add difficulty for no reason, you know?
Well, it was like, I mean, the traffic is one thing, but it was just like so aggressively in your way. Like I felt like you couldn't get around them. Like
the AI would just swerve right around them. It's
dicks.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then the AI, if they would touch you, like would set you back like 100 yards. It was
never bumped you
unbelievable. Yeah. I don't know. I think I probably won't revisit this one anytime soon. That's for damn sure.
No. Yeah, it's at the very bottom of rental, I think, for me. But
yeah, I could see it though. Well, I guess that's another episode, eh?
It is. Yeah. Hey, we're on Twitter. We can rental a podcast that's at gmail.com is our email address, but we're also on Twitter. If you want to reach out to us there. We occasionally stream these games when we find ones
do that again.
Yeah. When we find one that maybe is these last few maybe have been
not great stream
unstreamable
material.
I would say.
Yeah, I would concur. They wouldn't be a whole lot of fun or very short.
Yeah. But yeah, we're over at Twitch. And yeah, until next time, be kind, rewind.